Have you ever wondered why some people are drawn to you so intensely? As if something about your presence touches a part of them they forgot existed. You don't say much. You don't try to impress. And yet, they look at you like you're the answer to a question they didn't know they were asking. It's easy to assume it's your personality, or your kindness, or maybe the quiet strength you carry. But the truth, Jung would say, is much stranger. Love, in his view, is rarely about the person standing in front of us. It's about the image, the echo, the reflection of something deep within our unconscious that we've long been searching for. Picture this: a man who spent his childhood in silence, never heard, never truly seen, suddenly meets someone who listens with such presence it unnerves him. He feels something ancient wake up inside. He calls it love. But Jung would call it recognition. Recognition of a self he buried long ago. We all carry within us images, archetypes, shadows, potentials we never developed. And these fragments of the soul don't just vanish, they wait. Until one day, we meet someone who unconsciously carries them for us. We feel captivated, but not by them, not really. We are drawn to the symbol they've become. You've likely been that symbol for someone before. Someone fell in love with you, not because of your eyes, your words, or your gestures, but because you represented what they had lost touch with. You awakened something sleeping inside them. And maybe you've done the same. Fallen in love with someone who wasn't perfect, wasn't even a good fit, but something in them made you feel more alive, more whole. Not because they completed you, but because they mirrored the part of you you had forgotten. This is the paradox Jung revealed. Love is never just about the other. It is a mirror that can either heal us or deceive us, depending on how willing we are to see what's truly being reflected. We often believe that love happens by chance, that we just happen to meet the right person at the right time. But Jung believed there is no such thing as pure coincidence in matters of the heart. What feels spontaneous is often the result of years, maybe decades of unconscious shaping. From our earliest memories, we collect emotional fragments, moments of awe, of fear, of longing, moments where we felt safe or wounded or invisible. These moments become impressions etched into the psyche, and slowly, without us realizing, they build internal images of the ideal man, the ideal woman, the protector, the muse, the wild spirit, the nurturing soul. Jung called this process projection. When we meet someone new, we don't see them as they are. We see them through the lens of these projections. The other person becomes a screen, and on that screen, our unconscious begins to play its story. A quiet man may meet a confident woman and feel instantly drawn to her, not because of who she is, but because she embodies something he has never fully claimed in himself. He doesn't just admire her strength, he yearns for it, because deep down he knows it's missing. And so he falls, not just for her, but for the version of himself that he hopes to find through her. But here's the quiet danger. Projection can feel like magic. It can feel like destiny, but it isn't. It's a mirror of need. It's the psyche searching for wholeness in someone else. You might have seen this in your own life, falling for someone and only later realizing that what drew you in wasn't their reality, but your fantasy. You weren't in love with them. You were in love with the version of you that came alive in their presence. Likewise, others have likely fallen for you for reasons you'll never fully understand. They saw something in you, something glowing, unfinished, mysterious. But that glow was often more about their hunger than your truth. Jung believed this was not a flaw in human nature, but an invitation. The people we project onto are not mistakes. They are messengers. They arrive to reveal to us what is still unresolved. They shine light on our blind spots. And if we're wise, we won't just chase the feeling. We'll follow it inward. We'll ask, what part of me is seeking completion? Because until we do, love will continue to be a maze, beautiful, intense, but confusing. We'll keep reaching for others when what we're really missing is a lost part of ourselves. There's a moment in almost every relationship where the spark feels unexplainable. A glance, a word, a presence, and something stirs. It's not always loud. Sometimes it's just a quiet pull, a sense that this person matters, though we don't yet know why. According to Jung, that pull is often the voice of the unconscious recognizing itself in another. This leads us to the first profound reason people fall in love with you. You represent something they lack. It might be a quality they admire but never developed. It could be a way of being they've suppressed. Your calm presence, your depth, your fearlessness in the face of vulnerability, these are not just traits. To someone else, they are forgotten languages of the soul. Think of a woman who has spent her life always in control, measured, responsible. When she meets someone free-spirited, spontaneous, unapologetically alive, she might feel both awe and confusion. That person awakens in her the part she locked away, the wildness, the unfiltered joy. She might tell herself, I love him because he makes me feel alive. But what's really happening is deeper. He reminds her of a self she once was, or a self she longed to become. In this dynamic, love becomes a mirror, and the reflection is of potential. But here's the paradox. If she never realizes that what she sees in him is actually about her own unlived life, the love turns into dependency. She clings, not to him, but to what he symbolizes. She needs his freedom because she has not yet claimed her own. And that's how many relationships begin, with one person unconsciously borrowing another's qualities instead of building their own. Maybe you felt this. Someone enters your life and you're drawn to their strength, their creativity, their confidence. It lights something in you. But if you're not careful, you start relying on them to feel whole. You believe they complete you, when in truth, they only reflect what's dormant inside you. That's why Jung warned us, projection is a teacher, not a destination. The qualities we admire in others are road signs pointing to what we must integrate in ourselves. So when someone falls in love with you, it may not be because of your accomplishments or charm. It might be because you carry something they've lost, or something they've never dared to live. Your presence becomes an invitation, not just to love, but to become. But when love begins as a projection, when someone falls not for who you are, but for what you represent, it carries an invisible risk. Sooner or later, reality enters the room. You will say something that doesn't match their story. You will reveal a flaw. You will have a moment of doubt or anger or fear. And in that moment, the image they built around you begins to fracture. What once felt sacred becomes confusing. What once felt perfect now feels complicated. This is the dark side of projection. It creates a connection that can feel otherworldly, but it is fragile. Because it wasn't built on truth, it was built on longing. A person who falls in love with you because you embody something they lack may not even realize it. They may believe the love is about you, about your warmth, your strength, your silence. But the more they get to know you, the real you, the more the projection starts to break. And this is when the relationship is tested. Some will retreat. They will blame you for changing, for disappointing them, for not being what they imagined. But the truth is, you didn't change. They just stopped seeing the version of you they invented. Others will cling even harder. They will try to preserve the fantasy, to avoid the discomfort of seeing you as you are. But this too creates suffering because it resists the truth. In both cases, the relationship becomes unstable, not because of who you are, but because of what you were expected to be. This is why so many passionate loves collapse under their own weight. They begin with intensity, with devotion, with fire, but they were never rooted in mutual understanding. They were rooted in need. Jung saw this not as a failure, but as a necessary step in human development. He believed that every broken projection is a chance to grow. When we realize that the person we idolized is also human, we are invited to do something powerful. We are invited to meet them again, this time without illusion. And we are also invited to meet ourselves, to ask, what was I trying to find in them that I couldn't find in me? It is only through this process of disillusionment, of truth, of painful honesty, that love becomes something deeper. No longer a fantasy, but a partnership. No longer a mirror of need, but a space where two real people can stand, whole and seen. So if someone once loved you madly, then turned cold when they saw your humanity, it may not be about you. It may be the collapse of a projection they never realized they were carrying. And in that space, painful as it is, lies the most honest kind of love, the one that begins after the illusion ends. Jung didn't stop with projection. He went further, into the architecture of the psyche itself, into the mysterious blueprint that each of us carries, often without knowing. He called them the anima and the animus. Every man, Jung said, carries within him an unconscious image of the feminine, his anima. Every woman, an unconscious image of the masculine, her animus. These images are not random preferences or childhood crushes. They are deeply embedded symbols, formed through early relationships, shaped by parents, stories, myths, even the silent culture we grow up in. And one day, without warning, you meet someone who seems to fit that image perfectly. Not in appearance, necessarily, but in essence, in emotional tone, in energy. And when that happens, the pull can be overwhelming. It feels as if you've known them forever, as if you were waiting for them long before you met. That feeling isn't a coincidence. It's your psyche recognizing its own internal image, reflected back in another. And this brings us to the second reason people fall in love with you. You awaken a powerful unconscious image they've carried within. You are not just someone they're attracted to. You are the embodiment of something they've imagined, longed for, perhaps even worshipped in silence. You become the bridge between their conscious life and their inner world. They may say, "I don't know why, but I feel so connected to you." What they mean is, you match the shape of something I've carried for years. It's not always obvious. You might remind them of the nurturing they never received, or the mystery they were told to fear, or the strength they never dared to claim. Whatever it is, your presence unlocks it. And this is why the connection can feel spiritual, like fate, like destiny written in the stars. But Jung would gently warn us, it is not destiny, it is design, a psychological pattern playing itself out in real life. When someone projects their anima or animus onto you, they don't just admire you, they elevate you. You become sacred, untouchable, larger than life. And yet no human being can remain a symbol forever, because symbols do not make mistakes. Symbols don't have bad days. Symbols don't carry wounds or insecurities, but you do, I do, we all do. Eventually the illusion breaks, the symbol stumbles, and the person who once adored you now feels confusion, anger, betrayal, not because you betrayed them, but because you shattered the mirror. You showed them your humanity. And this is where the journey begins, not in the enchantment, but in the disillusionment. When they no longer love you as a fantasy, but have the courage to see you as you are, or walk away, still searching for the image that lives not in the world, but within. This is the moment of reckoning. When the image dissolves and the truth stands exposed, do they stay or do they retreat? For most, it is too difficult to accept. When someone has fallen in love with their own unconscious image, with their anima or animus projected onto you, they are not prepared for the complexity of who you really are. Your contradictions, your shadows, your inconsistencies, they don't fit the myth. And so, they recoil. They might say you've changed, or that you're not who they thought you were. But the reality is, they never truly saw you in the first place. What they saw was a sacred idea, a construction of the psyche, an ancient blueprint they mistook for a person. You were never meant to be a goddess, or a savior, or a dream. You were meant to be you. But this confrontation between projection and reality is not just painful, it's essential. Because here, if one is willing, love can evolve. Jung believed that these disruptions, these disillusionments, are part of a larger design. He called it individuation, the journey of becoming whole. And he believed that romantic relationships, especially the ones that shake us to our core, are catalysts for that journey. When someone projects their inner image onto you and that illusion is shattered, they are forced to look inward, to ask, what was I really searching for? What part of me was I trying to find through you? And you too are given that same gift. Because when someone loves you not for who you are, but for what you symbolized, and then walks away when the symbol breaks, you are invited to ask, why did I allow myself to carry their dream? Why did I stay quiet or small or perfect just to keep the illusion alive. This is how projection becomes a teacher. It exposes not only what others need from us, but what we are willing to become in order to be loved. And if we're brave, we stop playing the role. We stop trying to fit into someone's fantasy. We stop dimming our complexity to be their dream. Instead, we become whole. Because true love, the kind that endures, is not built on projection. It is built on presence, on two people standing before each other, not as symbols, not as saviors, but as flawed, evolving human beings. And that kind of love does not collapse when the illusion ends. It begins. Despite the heartbreak, the confusion, the unraveling of dreams, Jung saw all of it as sacred. Not because suffering is romantic, but because it wakes us up. Every person you've loved deeply, especially the ones who changed you, who broke you open, who left you questioning everything, they were not accidents. They were mirrors, and each mirror reflected something vital about your own soul. Some reflected your potential. They showed you what was possible, even if only for a moment. Others revealed your wounds. They triggered your insecurities, your fears of abandonment, your deep need to be chosen. Some simply held up your shadow, parts of you you've refused to see. But all of them, whether they stayed or left, had a purpose. Jung believed that the people we fall in love with are not just lovers. They are initiators. They arrive to move the story of our soul forward. Sometimes that means breaking us. Sometimes it means awakening us. Either way, it is never meaningless. He called these moments synchronistic, not logical, not planned, but deeply meaningful. A stranger turns up in your life just as you're wrestling with a decision. A conversation with someone you barely know leaves you changed. A chance encounter alters the direction of your future. Love is one of the most powerful of these synchronistic events because it strikes not at the mind, but at the heart. And when the heart is moved, the soul listens. So when someone falls in love with you, know this, it's not random. They are responding to something ancient and invisible. Maybe it's your presence. Maybe it's your silence. Maybe it's the way you carry your pain with dignity. Whatever it is, it stirs something in them, something they needed to feel. You are not just a person in their story. You are a turning point. And the same is true in reverse. When you fall in love, truly, uncontrollably, it is not about perfection. It is not about logic. It is the unconscious reaching out, trying to bring you closer to the self you've forgotten. The pain comes when we try to make it last forever, when we try to hold on to people who were only ever meant to awaken us. Not all loves are meant to be permanent. Some are meant to disrupt, to challenge, to break the cycle. These are the sacred relationships, the ones that don't work, but still transform you. They don't fail. They fulfill their purpose. And when you begin to see love this way, you stop asking, why did they leave? Or why didn't it last? Instead, you ask, what did this reveal in me? What did this come to teach me? That is when love stops being a search for completion and becomes a journey of becoming. So why do people fall in love with you? Not because of your charm, your looks, or even your kindness, at least not entirely. They fall in love with you because you carry something they lost, or something they never had. You reflect an image they've unknowingly nurtured inside for years. You awaken a forgotten part of their soul, and the same is true for you. The people you've loved most, especially the ones who left a mark, were not just people. They were symbols, invitations, guides. You didn't love them simply because of who they were. You loved what they represented to your unconscious mind, a trait you had buried, a strength you denied, a need you didn't know how to name. If you don't recognize these patterns, you'll keep chasing illusions. You'll keep calling it fate. You'll fall in love with the same archetype over and over, the same emotional story, the same lesson, disguised as a new face, and you'll wonder why love feels like a cycle you can't escape. But if you do recognize it, if you pause and ask, what in me is being mirrored right now? Everything begins to shift. That's what Jung meant when he said that awareness is the key. Once you become conscious of your patterns, your inner figures, your projections, you take your power back. You stop looking for someone to complete you. You stop searching for someone to rescue you. You begin to cultivate what you admire in others, within yourself. The confidence you were drawn to, you begin to embody it. The tenderness that made you melt, you learn to extend it to yourself. The wildness you feared but couldn't resist, you find ways to reclaim it without needing someone else to carry it for you. And from that place, from that quiet strength, love transforms. It stops being a desperate grasp for wholeness. It becomes a conscious meeting of two souls, each walking their own path, yet willing to share the road for a while. Not to fix each other, not to escape loneliness, but to witness each other as is. Because in the end, the deepest kind of love is not about finding the perfect person. It's about awakening the forgotten parts of yourself that have been waiting to be seen, and allowing someone else the honor of witnessing you do it. Love, then, is no longer a destination. It becomes a mirror, a teacher, a sacred disruption. And the next time someone looks at you with awe in their eyes, ask yourself, not what they see in you, but what you are awakening in them. That is where the real story begins.